The first thing I heard that morning wasn't birds or wind or even the soft splash of my pool's fountain. It was a wet, screeching yell that sounded like someone had been dunked in lava. I nearly dropped my coffee. When I rushed to the window, still in my robe, I saw her, Karen, the self-declared queen of the HOA, chest deep in my pool, flailing like a confused goose, clutching her phone in one hand and trying to keep her designer sun hat afloat with the other. She wasn't just trespassing. She'd climbed over my side gate, walked past 3 very visible private property signs, and was now angrily floundering in water she had no business being near, yelling at nobody in particular about safety inspections and chlorine imbalances. I stood there stunned, holding my mug like it might explain any of this. The sheer audacity of this woman. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I smiled. I walked out slowly, calmly, and locked the gate behind me with a sharp metallic click that seemed to echo louder than her screeches. She didn't notice at first. I went back inside, set my coffee down, and turned on the pool camera feed with a quiet satisfaction humming in my chest. Today was the day I stopped playing nice. Karen had always acted like the neighborhood was her own private kingdom. Ever since I moved in 6 months ago, she'd been sniffing around like a bloodhound, writing notes about my garbage bins, warning me about grass blade length, sending gentle reminders that wind chimes were against HOA code. Her latest vendetta had been about my pool. She claimed the reflective surface disturbed her dog, that my pool filter was offensive to community noise guidelines, and that my pool umbrella shade extended 2 inches past some invisible compliance zone. I had ignored her until she escalated to official violation letters and then petty revenge. Last week, she reported me for operating an unlicensed aquatic facility, which apparently meant letting my niece splash around during her birthday. I was already seething. But this? This took things to a divine new level of crazy. She had taken off her sandals and placed them neatly on my stone border like this was a spa. She even brought a lemon slice water bottle and set it beside a pool chair she hadn't asked to use. Now, watching her panic and flail as she realized the gate was locked, trapped, drenched, and screaming for someone to come remove the illegal barrier, I felt an emotion I hadn't tasted in a while. Justice. I let her yell. For 20 full minutes, she cycled through rage, denial, pleading, and attempted threats. "I'm calling the HOA police," she barked, holding up a phone that definitely had water damage. "You're in direct violation of community wellness standards," she wailed, slipping a little and dunking her shoulder under. Eventually she noticed the cameras. She pointed at them with dripping fingers like they were war crimes. Then she sat on a floaty shaped like a flamingo and crossed her arms, demanding towels. I gave her a wave from the living room. She screamed again. Of course, the moment couldn't last forever. Eventually, my neighbor Jeff heard the noise and wandered over, shirtless and confused. I unlocked the gate for him. Karen screeched that I had kidnapped her. Jeff blinked at me, blinked at her, and asked, "Why are you in his pool?" Her answer included something about hazard mitigation and community rights, which neither of us understood. He left shaking his head. I didn't press charges. Not yet. Instead, I documented everything. I saved the footage. I printed screenshots. I even sent her a laminated copy of my gate's lock mechanism in case she ever tried it again. That night, she posted on the HOA Facebook page, accusing me of running an underground water cult. The post got 4 likes and 17 laughing reacts. Something had shifted. Neighbors started texting me. Did she really say she was inspecting your filter? Was she really floating in your pool chair? Did she bring her own fruit water? Apparently yes. What Karen didn't know, couldn't know, was that I'd been quietly collecting HOA regulation history for weeks. My cousin is a property attorney, and together we'd been planning something. Karen had created enemies all across the street. The elderly couple she fined for painting their shutters beige, the single dad whose swing set she demanded removed, the nurse who got a warning letter for leaving a lunch cooler on the porch. These weren't just inconveniences. They were patterns. And now, with video proof and public embarrassment, I had what I needed. The next day, she doubled down. She dropped off an official HOA citation. Improper gate access and noise pollution due to echoing metal click. I framed it and hung it in my kitchen. She had no idea she was building my case for me. While she was furiously trying to regain control, I was already setting up a website with all the evidence. She wanted a war? I had blueprints. She brought a pool noodle. I had a pressure washer. The best part? This was only the beginning. Because Karen thought she was untouchable. She believed her HOA position made her queen of the cul-de-sac. But she forgot something crucial. This wasn't her yard. This wasn't her pool. And this wasn't her story. Not anymore. The moment she dipped a toe into my water without permission, she'd opened a floodgate that wouldn't close. The locked gate was just the start. And by the time she realized it, she'd be wading through something far deeper than chlorine. The next morning started with a folded piece of paper shoved under my front door and a faint smell of citrus body spray, which was Karen's signature scent, lemon sabotage. I opened the note with a sigh, already knowing it would contain something ridiculous. There it was, printed in bold font with faux legal flair. A notice from the HOA declaring I was in violation of Rule 4B, unauthorized fence locking that hindered neighborhood emergency responsiveness. According to Karen's citation, I had breached safety standards by locking a gate while a community member was actively conducting wellness oversight. It would have been laughable if it hadn't come attached with a fine of $275. The part that really made me snort my coffee was the added clause. Further noncompliance may result in lawn inspection. A threat to my grass. Classic Karen. She was escalating. She always did when she felt her grip slipping. But this time I wasn't just going to roll my eyes and ignore it like the others. No, this time I had receipts, videos, and a plan backed by multiple neighbors and a cousin with a legal brain built like a bear trap. She wanted a neighborhood drama? She was going to get a season finale. Before I could even finish laughing, my phone buzzed with a text from Lisa, the retired nurse 3 doors down. She asked if it was true that Karen had climbed into my pool and screamed for help while sitting on a flamingo floaty. I sent her a short clip in response. 5 minutes later, she texted 3 crying laughing emojis followed by, "About time someone gave her a taste of her own chlorinated medicine." Turns out, Lisa had a long history with Karen too. 2 years ago, Karen tried to fine her for keeping a pair of wind chimes that were, and I quote, emotionally aggressive. A month later, she reported Lisa's son for excessive door slamming. This was the same woman who threw a full-blown HOA tantrum when someone parked a food truck on the cul-de-sac for a birthday party. She acted like it was an armed siege. But she'd stayed in power because people didn't want the stress. Most just paid the stupid fines, rolled their eyes, and hoped Karen would eventually get bored. Spoiler, she never did. Karen was powered by control the way some people are powered by caffeine. Over the next few days, something shifted in the neighborhood. People started talking. Jeff, the shirtless neighbor who had witnessed Karen's pool invasion firsthand, dropped off a USB drive with footage from his backyard camera that showed Karen hopping my fence like an amateur gymnast. Margaret and George, the sweet old couple who always baked banana bread for community events, invited me over to tell me how Karen once fined them for using non-regulation holiday lights. She said blue LED was too aggressive for elderly eyes. I was stunned. Not at what she'd done, but at how long it had gone unchallenged. Karen ruled with a clipboard and a smile sharp enough to slice sheetrock. But now, slowly, the curtain was lifting. I started compiling. Every fine, every letter, every Facebook post she made shaming someone for leaving a hose on the lawn. I created folders labeled Karen Craziness and HOA Hypocrisy. My cousin, Evan, reviewed the HOA bylaws and nearly spit out his drink laughing when he reached the part about trespass exceptions for community inspection. He told me flatly, "That's not a real thing. She made that up." You could have her removed from the board for half the stuff she's doing, if the neighborhood votes. That was the key phrase. If the neighborhood vote. Karen wasn't elected. She stepped in when the previous HOA president moved to Florida, and she never stepped out. No one ran against her. No one wanted to. Until now. The final push came in the form of a complaint slip-taped to my recycling bin. Karen had cited me for improper cardboard flattening. Apparently, a cereal box that retained some of its 3D shape was now a community emergency. It was cartoonish. My anger wasn't the kind that made your blood boil. It was colder, sharper, the kind that planned, the kind that smiled while scanning documents and setting up neighborhood Zoom meetings. Lisa hosted the first gathering. We didn't name it the Karen intervention out loud, but everyone knew what it was. Stories poured out. Karen had reported Greg for trimming his hedge unevenly. She accused Priya of aggressive yoga on her back deck. She tried to get a petition signed to ban Halloween decorations because she thought skeletons were spiritually invasive. People had had enough. We drafted a letter calling for a formal HOA vote to remove Karen as acting president, citing abuse of power, unauthorized trespassing, and community disruption. When Karen got wind of it, she went nuclear. She accused me of stalking her, of creating an anti-community cult, and of threatening to poison her dog, which was baffling since I'd never even seen the dog outside once. She printed flyers warning neighbors about radicalization and posted them on telephone poles. She tried to have my driveway chalk art labeled as graffiti. Then she made her worst mistake. She tried to find Margaret and George again, this time for their porch chairs being nostalgically offensive. That's when Margaret, sweet 82-year-old Margaret, told her to shove the citation into a part of her body that had never received mail. Karen turned red and stormed off. Margaret offered me banana bread and asked when the vote would happen. In the middle of all this, I quietly requested the HOA charter records from the city clerk and found a golden nugget buried in the fine print. A clause that stated any board member found trespassing on another's property forfeits eligibility unless voted back in by a supermajority. Karen had violated that clause twice in 1 week, once during the pool incident and once before that, according to Jeff's footage, when she peeked over Priya's fence to check for unauthorized patio furniture. We had her, but it wasn't enough to remove her. We needed to show the neighborhood what she really was, entitled, power-hungry, and out of control. So I made a compilation video. No narration, no edits, just raw footage. Karen climbing the fence. Karen yelling about pool safety while bobbing on a flamingo. Karen calling the recycling truck a hazard to visual tranquility. I uploaded it to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "Is this your president?" Within hours, it had more comments than any HOA post in history. Some people defended her, but most were done. One guy suggested we throw her a retirement party and accidentally forget to invite her. Others were less polite. When Karen saw the post, she called an emergency HOA meeting and insisted she'd been framed. She waved a wet piece of paper that might have once been a citation and shouted about neighborhood order. But it was too late. People weren't laughing anymore. They were watching, listening, planning, and I was just getting started. 3 days after the HOA emergency meeting exploded like a confetti cannon filled with passive-aggressive rage, Karen responded the only way she knew how, by doubling down with a level of delusion so intense it deserved its own weather warning. That morning, a mysterious white van appeared on the street, parked conveniently across from my front yard, unmarked except for a magnet on the door that read Neighborhood Integrity Response Team. The font was in Comic Sans. It took all of 5 seconds for me to realize what was going on. Karen had taken it upon herself to install a fake surveillance vehicle to monitor safety concerns in the neighborhood. She even went so far as to tape a fake antenna to the roof and leave a clipboard on the dashboard visible through the windshield with notes that included, subject watering lawn at 9:13 a.m., possible overhydration, and suspicious cat activity near mailbox. I stood on my porch sipping my